Landlords in Philadelphia are ready to sell due to the growing number of regulations within the city. And at the same time, in South Carolina, a landlord is going to lose his property to a tax sale due to the coronavirus pandemic. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have two interesting articles for you today. And one's coming out of the city of Philadelphia, a very, very tenant-friendly place. And then the other one's coming out of South Carolina. And due to the coronavirus pandemic and the eviction moratoriums, a landlord down there is going to be forced to sell his property, or his property is actually not being forced to sell, but they are taking it from him. And it's going to be put up on a tax sale. But before I get into those two articles, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know if you think regulations have made it too hard to be a landlord in some of these cities, okay? So I know places like Philadelphia, New York, Seattle, Los Angeles, or all over California, all the regulations, all the rules they put on landlords just make it impossible for a small landlord to just get through it easily and make a decent profit. So, the first article comes from whyy.org, and it says, as more Philly landlords move to sell and hold off on repairs, analysts see a threat. All right, let's see what it says. Sandy Lichtman can't wait to sell the Center City building she and her husband bought 30 years ago to house his medical practice. They're both ready to retire. But Lichtman said she's also tired of complying with the city's growing list of regulations for landlords, including a 2019 requirement that they cover the full cost of bed bug remediation. I don't want to deal with property management. I'd be happy just to be done with it, Lichtman said. The mixed-use building has 3 apartments. During the pandemic, Lichtman said one of her tenants, an online entrepreneur, moved in and never paid rent, knowing she couldn't be evicted under the city's emergency moratorium. So yeah, here we have small landlord. They actually own a mixed-use building. Sounds like they had the medical practice down on the bottom level and then apartments up above it. And somebody moves in, and guess what? Immediately stop paying rent because of these eviction moratoriums. So that should show you right there that there are issues with the eviction moratorium that mean that they don't benefit landlords. They really hurt small landlords such as this, and that's why I don't think it should have been in place in the first place. Okay, these people, they ended up getting screwed over by this tenant. The tenant had just moved in. It cost Lichtman more than $10,000, she said. She said the loss didn't deepen her desire to sell. Neither did the pandemic that drove the moratorium, though she spent many of the long quarantine hours of 2020 trying to sell, and is now moving forward with a new commercial listing. The new rules and regs that the city put on us just added to my fervent desire to get rid of it, she said. Yeah, so not even the eviction moratorium was what was motivating her to get rid of the property. It was all the other regulations, okay? All the tenant-friendly laws and all the rules that they put in place on landlords. So even if there never was an eviction moratorium, let's just pretend like, okay, the pandemic never happened, there never was an eviction moratorium, she'd still want to sell that building due to all the garbage that the city of Philadelphia made her do in order to be a landlord. It just isn't worth it to her, and she still would have, been completely frustrated. Nearly 21% of Philadelphia landlords listed a property for sale in 2020 compared to 3.5% in 2019, according to a recent survey by researchers at the University of Pennsylvania and Harvard University. Property sale listings were up in all 10 cities, including in the August report, but Philadelphia had a bigger year-over-year jump than the aggregate, 3% to 13% in 2020. While a greater share of larger landlords with 20 or more units in Philadelphia listed their properties for sale, small landlords with 1 to 5 units were also looking to get out. Roughly 20% of them, a figure co-author Elijah De La Campa called quite sobering. In Philadelphia, landlords who own fewer units provide the bulk of the city's affordable rental stock. So yeah, it went from 3.5% of landlords looking to sell their properties in 2019 to 20% looking to sell. That's 1 out of every 5 landlords was trying to offload properties, and it obviously was linked to the eviction moratorium, okay? So you can't tell me that this isn't going to cause issues going into the future. And yeah, this author, or this, the co-author is absolutely right. The majority of small landlords are the ones who are providing the lower income housing, the affordable housing that people live in. And that's what a lot of people just don't understand, okay? The larger landlords are the ones building the new buildings. They're the ones going for the most profits. And the smaller landlords own the older, smaller buildings, and they're the ones providing the affordable housing. So when we get out of the business, a lot of the times we're selling to larger landlords, or, you know, if it's a single family house, we're selling to owner occupants, and that means that there's just less rental stock. That means prices are going to rise, and there's going to be a lot less affordable housing for those who need it. So bad deal overall. Good Lord. The report found that landlords who collected less in rent in 2020, most likely as a result of the pandemic, were much more likely to list their properties for sale. No duh. That was not the case before COVID-19 hit the country. And yet it's unclear what all this says about Philadelphia's affordable rental market going forward. A market housing advocates consider far too small long before the pandemic. The survey didn't ask landlords why they decided to list their properties. They didn't need to ask, okay? It's pretty obvious, okay? Losses due to the lockdowns, the pandemic, etc. That's it. Pretty simple. So, yeah, bad situation going on in Philadelphia for these landlords who are looking to sell. But I have an even worse story in this next article, okay? So it's going over a landlord who's losing his property due to all the losses that he suffered during the pandemic. So this article, it's coming from WPDE.com, and it says, Columbia landlord to lose home blames eviction moratorium for non-paying tenants. A Columbia landlord will soon lose his property after not being able to collect rent or evict non-paying tenants for months due to the eviction moratorium. Michael Shoemaker tells WAC Fox News, or I guess it's WACH Fox News, he's owned his Columbia duplex for more than 20 years, but that Richland County will be reclaiming it and putting it up for sale in December. Shoemaker says because of the eviction moratorium, tenants have taken advantage, and he's been stuck with paying all the bills. We have 10 people who are supposed to be paying rent. This month we've been able to collect $20, says Shoemaker. He says the federal eviction moratorium financially ruined him, as he was left to foot the bill for rent, taxes, and utilities for tenants that he says haven't paid in more than a year. So yeah, this guy, he's got a duplex, and it sounds like none of the tenants in the duplex are paying rent. So meanwhile, he still has to cover all the other bills, all the other expenses. You know, if he has a mortgage on the property, he has to pay his property insurance, he has to pay property taxes, he has to pay for maintenance, and these things, they add up. If he has to pay for utilities as well, I mean, if he doesn't have a large enough emergency reserve, especially as long as the eviction moratorium went on, then he could have a real big problem. And I think that's exactly what happened. So the picture that he has here, he's holding up a thing that says tax sale. So I'll put that up here on the screen. And basically, he didn't pay his property taxes. He couldn't pay his property taxes because of this eviction moratorium, because he wasn't getting any rent in. So, yeah, that's a horrible situation to be put in, where you're literally losing your property to the government when the government is the one who put the eviction moratorium in place. I was like $24,000 in debt just from owning this house, says Shoemaker. I had another property. I had to sell it for $15,000 loss just to be able to pay my credit card bills and keep utilities on and be able to live. It's terrible. Now a notice can be seen on the front lawn that Richland County officials will be seizing and selling Shoemaker's property for delinquent taxes in December. It's a dilemma South Carolina State Representative Marvin Pendarvis says he's working to offset. pledging that more coronavirus relief funding is in the pipeline. He doesn't need coronavirus relief funding. He needs a way to save his property. Now, why didn't they put property tax moratorium into place for landlords who weren't getting paid rent? Oh no, because they don't care. They don't care about landlords. They get the silly impression that all landlords are super wealthy and that we can just go on for 1, 2, who knows how many years without getting paid anything. Well, guess what? This guy's losing his property. The state is taking it, or the city or whoever, just the government is taking his property, and they're the ones who caused this problem. So this is the worst case, yet of unlawful taking of property. And, this is a constitutional issue here, okay? This guy had his property taken away, and it was all caused by these eviction moratoriums that went on. So, if this guy has any help, they need to sue. They need to work hard to make sure that he gets compensated. He doesn't lose his property. Oh, man, if there was just something more I could do. But I just want to bring awareness out there that this kind of situation is going on. Okay, landlords are losing their properties. This isn't all about tenants. Oh, the tenant is going to be homeless. This guy couldn't pay his bills and he had to charge up all his credit cards just to pay the utilities. I mean, come on, man. How dare they do something like this to a small business owner? But none of this should be surprising, okay? This has turned into a complete clown show. That we're in clown world right now. This whole thing has become so ridiculous that, we've got people who have to fund out of their own pocket so other people can live for free. Now, what a joke is that?